Okay, this is the first part of section 3.5, solving equations with absolute values. Okay, so absolute value, quick recap on that. That's whenever you see these vertical bars with, a number in between. Okay, and what it means is it's measuring how far that particular number is from zero, if you think about it on a number line. Okay, so you have a number line, here's 0, 1, 2, 3. You would say that that is 1, 2, 3 units away, right? So it'd be 3. The absolute value of, let's say, -3, that would be 1, 2, 3 right here. Well, from 0, that's 1, 2, 3. Again, 3 spaces. So one way to think about absolute value is it's the distance from 0. And when you think about distance, okay, you usually use positive values. You don't tend to use negative values when you talk about distance. Okay, so you could say -3, the absolute value of -3 equals 3. You could say the absolute value of +3 equals 3. Okay, notice there are two instances where the absolute value of some number equals 3. Okay, there's two different values. So if I give you this as an equation, the absolute value of some unknown number equals 3, well, there's two different things that could be. It could be a +3 or it could be a -3. Either one works. Okay, so let's generalize that idea real quick so that way we can answer some questions. So to generalize this, we'll say this is only true whenever you're dealing with values, we'll say A, that are positive, okay? That are positive. If you have the absolute value of some unknown equals this positive number we're calling A, then we know that whatever's inside that absolute value will equal A, or it could equal -A. Okay, so let's look at how this was if we were talking about 3 again, right? If you had the absolute value of some unknown equals 3, well then x could be 3, x could be -3, right? Both of these would work. Either one, if you plug them in, would give you +3. Okay, so this is what we're going to use to solve these equations, these absolute value equations. So our first example 1, pretty straightforward. Let's solve the equation, the absolute value of x equals 3/2. The absolute value of x equals 3/2. Okay, this fits perfectly, right? Absolute value of x equals some number, and that number is positive. Okay, well then, x equals 3/2, and we could say that x equals -3/2. Both of these are solutions to our equation. Okay, so that was an easy one. Let's do another one, not so easy. What if you have the absolute value of x plus 5 equals 1? The absolute value of x plus 5 equals 1. Okay, so this one looks a little different, but it's still the same idea, okay? So let's kind of ignore this real quick. Let's just pretend like that's our x or whatever. Okay, well, whatever's inside there is equal to a +1, right? The absolute value of whatever's in here equals a +1. So it still fits this if you pretend like that doesn't have to be x, okay? It can be x plus something or minus something. It turns out that it works just fine. So inside x plus 5, all right, let me rewrite this. Maybe this will be easier to see it for those of you who need a little extra, coloring to help see it. Okay, the inside is x plus 5. So that inside is what equals +1, and that inside will equal -1. All right, +1 and -1 based off that +1 there. Okay, so this is not our final answer, of course, but it gives us two simple equations to solve. On the left, subtracting 5 from both sides gives me x equals -4. There's my first solution. On the right, subtracting 5 from both sides gives me x equals -6. There's my second solution. Okay, so even though this wasn't just an x, we can still work it out the same way. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, so the absolute value of 7x minus 4 plus 10 equals 8. Okay, so the absolute value is not by itself. It doesn't quite look like it fits this original form that we talked about, where it's the absolute value inside, a variable inside, absolute value, the absolute value is by itself, and it equals a positive number. Okay, so here we have this plus 10. We're going to have to move that over. So subtract 10 from both sides. We're trying to get the absolute value by itself first. Okay, those cancel out, leaving me with a -2 here. Okay, and then before you get carried away and start working this out, remember what we said, right? Don't work this out yet. Absolute value equals, this number has to be positive. Otherwise, there's nothing you can do here. So this one has no solution. And let's think about why that is. Okay, first of all, again, its absolute value equals a negative number. That doesn't mean anything. The reason why is because if this is a measurement of distance, it does not make sense to say you have -2 miles, right? Or -2 meters, okay? Negative is not used for distance. It's used for displacement, right? If you're thinking about physics, right? You'll use negative numbers for displacement, not for distance, okay? So no solution. Let's do 2 more examples. Absolute value of 5x plus 4 plus 2 equals 5. Okay, similar to the last problem. We need to take care of this plus 2 so we can get the absolute value by itself. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides of the equation, and that will leave me with the absolute value of 5x plus 4 equals 3. Okay, this one fits better than the last one, right? This is not a -3, it's a +3, so this one works. Okay, so that inside part could equal 3. That inside part could equal -3. It sets up 2 equations. Okay, on the left, subtract 4 from both sides. 3 minus 4 is -1. Divide by 5. So I get -1/5. On the right, subtract 4 from both sides. -3 minus 4 is -7. Divide both sides by 5, and I get -7/5. So there's my 2 solutions. Okay, one more. Solve the equation 5 minus the absolute value of 4x plus 3 equals 2. Okay, again, we need to get the absolute value by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is take care of this +5 and subtract that away. That leaves me with a negative absolute value of 4x plus 3 equals -3. Okay, this looks like absolute value equal to a negative, right? In which case I would say no solution. But of course, if I look carefully, I'll notice that there's this negative right here. It's an understood -1. I need to get rid of that. So I can either divide or multiply both sides by -1. Let me just divide. Let's divide by -1. Divide by -1. Of course, that turns that into a +1, so it cancels it out. Absolute value of 4x plus 3 equals -3 divided by -1 is a +3, so it took care of the negative. Okay, so now I can ignore all that original part of the problem, and this is what I'm working with now. Absolute value of 4x plus 3 equals 3. Absolute value equals a positive number, so the inside part could equal positive 3. The inside part could equal a negative 3. On the left, subtract 3 from both sides. 3 minus 3 is 0. Divide both sides by 4. 0 divided by 4 is 0. So 0 is my first solution. Subtract 3 from both sides on the right. Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. Divide both sides by 4. That's negative 6 over 4. I should reduce that. It's negative 3 over 2. So those are my two solutions. Okay, and that's the first part of section 3.5, solving absolute value equations.